They call it Hope Haven, nestled in the rolling hills of western Oregon. And from its morning mists emerges a sanctuary, a benevolent place curiously unknown to most of the world, yet to which so many owe their comfort, even their lives. For 12 years, this 10-acre haven has been a refuge for society's forgotten, the abandoned, the neglected, the frightened souls who've known only fear and rejection. Under the watchful eye of 58-year-old Margaret Thompson, Hope Haven welcomes those whom others have turned away. Margaret wasn't always the caretaker of lost souls. Once she was a successful pharmaceutical executive in Portland with a corner office and a 6-figure salary. I had everything money could buy, she told me when I visited the sanctuary, and absolutely nothing that truly mattered. It was a rainy Tuesday in March of 2013 when Margaret's life changed forever. Driving home from work, she spotted something huddled against the concrete barrier of the highway, trembling, injured, afraid. I couldn't just drive by, she explained, her eyes drifting to the window where the sanctuary grounds spread out before us. Something made me stop. That something was a golden retriever, emaciated and badly injured. Margaret wrapped the dog in her designer coat and rushed to the nearest veterinary hospital. The vet told me he wouldn't make it through the night, Margaret recalled, a small smile playing at her lips. But Charlie had other ideas. Charlie not only survived but thrived under Margaret's care, and in nursing him back to health, Margaret discovered something she'd been missing her entire life: purpose. Within 6 months, she had resigned from her position, sold her downtown condo, and purchased the sprawling property that would become Hope Haven. My colleagues thought I had lost my mind. She chuckled. Maybe I had, but I've never regretted it for a moment. Today, Hope Haven houses over 200 residents at any given time. But these aren't humans seeking shelter. They're animals: dogs, cats, horses, goats, even the occasional pot-bellied pig, or rescued wildlife awaiting transfer to specialized facilities. The complex includes climate-controlled barns, specialized medical facilities, and acres of fenced meadows where the animals can roam freely. A staff of 15, including 3 full-time veterinarians, ensures that every resident receives proper care. Each animal has a story, Margaret explained as we walked the grounds. Some were abandoned, some abused. Some simply grew too old or sick for their owners to manage. We approached a pen where a 3-legged German shepherd watched us curiously. "This is Ranger," Margaret said, opening the gate. The dog immediately pressed against her legs, tail wagging. He was a police dog who lost his leg in the line of duty. His department couldn't afford his medical care in retirement, so he came to us. As we continued our tour, I noticed something peculiar. Margaret carried with her a small inhaler, which she used frequently. When I inquired about it, she waved dismissively. "Just a little breathing issue, nothing compared to what these souls have endured." But Sarah Jenkins, Hope Haven's head veterinarian, later told me a different story. "Margaret never complains, but it's far more serious than she lets on." Sarah confided she developed severe adult-onset allergies shortly after founding Hope Haven. She's allergic to animal dander, all animals. The irony seemed almost cruel. The woman who had given up everything to create a sanctuary for abandoned animals was physically allergic to the very beings she had dedicated her life to protecting. "We've tried everything," Sarah continued. "Special medications, air purifiers in her living quarters, even experimental treatments. Nothing eliminates the symptoms completely. Those symptoms include chronic respiratory distress, painful rashes, and debilitating headaches that can last for days." Yet Margaret refuses to step away from her daily duties at the sanctuary. "The day I found Charlie was the day I found my calling," Margaret told me later that afternoon as we sat on her porch overlooking the sanctuary. "A little discomfort is nothing compared to the suffering these animals have endured." Margaret's little discomfort requires a strict regimen of powerful antihistamines, regular steroid treatments, and the constant use of her inhaler. Even with these interventions, she often struggles to breathe after spending time in the animal quarters. "We've tried to convince her to manage from a distance," Sarah explained, to hire more staff and limit her direct contact with the animals. But she insists on being hands-on with every new arrival. Each new resident at Hope Haven receives a personal welcome from Margaret. She sits with them, speaks softly to them, and makes a promise that they will never be abandoned again. It's the most important part of what we do, Margaret insisted. These animals need to know they're safe, that they're home. The financial burden of maintaining Hope Haven is substantial. The annual operating cost exceeds $2 million, covering food, medical care, and staff salaries. Margaret funds much of this herself, having invested her considerable savings and stock portfolio into the sanctuary. The remainder comes from donations and grants. We operate month to month sometimes, she admitted, but somehow we always find a way to keep going. As the afternoon waned into evening, Margaret invited me to witness what she called the sunset ritual. As the golden Oregon sun began to dip below the horizon, she walked to a small hill at the center of the property. One by one, the animals that were physically able made their way to her, dogs, cats, even a few of the smaller livestock. This wasn't planned, she explained as we were surrounded by her furry companions. It just started happening about a year after we opened. They come on their own. An ancient black Labrador rested his head on Margaret's knee. A one-eyed cat perched on her shoulder. 2 goats stood sentry-like nearby. "This is when I know it's all worth it," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "This moment, every day, no matter how difficult things get." As darkness fell and the animals dispersed, Margaret and I walked back to the main house. Her breathing had become labored, and she used her inhaler twice during our short journey. "You know," she said, pausing to catch her breath, "people ask me all the time if I miss my old life. The money, the status, the comfort." She gestured around at the sanctuary, now quiet under the emerging stars. "How could I miss anything when I have everything right here?" The next morning, as I prepared to leave, I found Margaret in the medical building, cradling a newly arrived puppy. The tiny creature had been found in a dumpster behind a grocery store, barely alive. "He'll make it," she said with certainty, though her eyes were red and swollen from her allergic reaction. "They almost always do, once they're here." I asked her what she would tell others who might want to follow in her footsteps. "Don't wait for the perfect moment," she said immediately. "If you see suffering you can alleviate, that's your sign, that's your calling." As I drove away from Hope Haven, I watched in my rearview mirror as Margaret returned to her charges, inhaler in hand, ready to face another day of discomfort in service to those who needed her most. She had found her purpose that rainy day 12 years ago, when she rescued a golden retriever named Charlie, and every day since, despite the physical toll, she has reaffirmed that choice. The pharmaceutical executive turned animal sanctuary founder, the woman who gave up wealth and comfort to provide a home for the abandoned and abused, the caretaker who endures constant physical suffering to alleviate the suffering of others. She is known to hundreds of volunteers and thousands of donors as Margaret Thompson, but before she dedicated her life to animal rescue, before she founded Hope Haven, before she became the savior of countless abandoned souls, her name was Dr. Amelia Richardson, pioneering developer of the world's most widely prescribed antihistamine medication. And now you know the rest of the story. Good day.